Drake Strayer here for Fedgelite Graphics, and I'm going to do a tutorial based on a request on boujou match moving and tracking. So here we are in boujou, and I'm going to show you a couple things really quick. Basically a couple of things over here. It's a button right here that says add poly masks, which means if you add a mask to a certain area, boujou will exclude that specific area from tracking. Important if you have like people walking down the street or something and you don't want to track those people. Third is add locators. In other words, you can add a specific location to the tracking. Fourth would be add target tracks, which means if you want to manually add a target track that you know is specifically correct, you can add those tracks manually. Third is track feature, which means when you upload the sequence, it tracks for you. And it basically takes all kinds of tracking data and tracks the movement of the video camera based on 2D algorithm. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to import a sequence, and it's probably going to be a 179 frame video. Okay, we got start frame 0, step 1 to end frame 179, and number from 1. That's going to be important later on, and I'll show you why. But for now, go ahead and click apply. And we have a street of a video of a street, basically. And the next thing we want to do is go ahead and track that. So we'll hit track features. And as you can see all kinds of tracking data, and it locates specific areas that would be best for tracking. Do keep in mind though, the higher the video quality, the better the tracking. This isn't very high quality. It was just recorded off my picture camera, basically, and it might not do a justice per se, but it'll get the job done in letting you know exactly how boujou works. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward in time. See you on the other side. Okay, forward in time. We are 100% complete with the tracking. But you're asking yourself what to do with all of this. Well, the tracking's been solved, but nothing else has, so there's nothing else to do but solve more, like the camera, for instance. Everything in 2D has been solved in the tracking, and based on the tracking motions, the camera will solve based on those movements. So right underneath track features is camera solve, so we want to click that, all frames, and start. And based on those points, the camera will move exactly the same way the camera in the actual video does. So forward in time, and we'll get back to you. Okay, we are now forward in time again, and everything is complete. Now, the best tracking points are solved. If you scrub through, you can see the points actually moving along with the camera, which is what we want. Now the next step is setting up the axis. You have to do that for 3ds Max because any other program probably uses the y-axis as the up and down, whereas the 3ds Max axis uses the Z for up and down. So we're probably going to have to fix the scene geometry from there. So right underneath camera solve is scene geometry. It'll pull up a little dialog, and first thing we want to do is hit add from hint. Okay, so we have one status is disconnected because we have nothing to it. We want to actually do the z-axis first, so we'll pick 2 points that are strictly up and down from each other. Holding down the control key also selects more than just one, as by default. So we have 2 that are completely up and down from each other. So we'll go ahead and connect those 2. So 2 tracks have been connected to that one point. We want to change it to Z. Okay, now the next step is to do the x-axis. So we'll create one, flip it to X, and we'll select maybe this one right here and this one right here. That looks like a pretty decent x-axis right there. We'll connect those 2. We'll go ahead and add one more for the Y, and let's see if we can find one that's straight. Well, maybe right here would actually do it justice right here. So just those 2, flip it to y-axis, and select connect. Okay, so now we have a y, x, and z-axis hint, and that is going to be our ground plane per se. We also want to select an origin, so basically somewhere where it's the middle. I'd say that one looks pretty good. And we actually want to hit another add coordinate, and we want to select origin and connect that one. So that way we have middle, x, y, and z axis. The next step would be to add some reference points, because you don't want to load this into 3ds Max and have every single point activated. That might cause some serious slowdown. So we're going to highlight some of these ground dots here, some of the dots that are on the ground. Maybe a couple right here, maybe a couple that are right here for a good measure. And we'll click on one, and we'll select flag for export. And that way, when you export it in, just the only points that will show are just the ones that are pretty much on the ground. Now the reason why we're setting up this scene geometry basically is because if you just export it as it was earlier, it would probably make the grid look like a wall instead of the ground plane. So next we'll hit export camera solve. I'll actually want to browse the location to the folder of the sequence. So desktop sequence. There we go. We want to switch it to 3ds Max. It's .ms, which stands for Max Script. So we'll be basically just uploading a Max script, and that's it. Everything else is correct. Also, you want to make sure that this is selected when it says export flagged tracks only. So it'll only export this. Otherwise, you'll end up exporting the whole thing. I made that mistake before too. Since my grid is slightly larger, instead of 100 scale by 100, which is the default size of the grid, mine I've actually set in kilometers, which is slightly bigger. So I'm going to do like 500, just so you can see everything. Okay, and everything else looks good, so we're going to hit save. And we're going to go over to 3ds Max. Highlight. Now this IFL file is actually the background reference file. You don't really need that, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. I don't know about you, you can keep it if you want to, but I personally don't care for it. Okay, we are deleted, and now the very bottom is going to say untitled project.ms. That's actually what I saved it under by default. So we're going to drag and drop out here. Okay, most systems don't have this problem, but mine apparently does. It always comes up with the syntax error where it says the file name and then .ifl. I actually don't need that variable. If you don't have either whether or not you do have the file on or imported, it'll still come up with the syntax error. You won't be able to use the Mac script, so I just delete it. Completely get rid of it. Okay, and then I'll save that. And I will try to import it again. Okay, most of the time you'll get this little problem where for some reason it'll still face the opposite way from the actual intended. Let me show you what I was talking about earlier. If I go to cameras and select the camera that was imported by the Mac script, you'll see that the grid is the wall now, which is always a problem I end up having. But as always, you can take these reference points like before, and it actually helps so that you let's see. Actually, want to zoom out. Let's see. Select everything. And from there, just sort of make sure everything's flat, as flat as you can get it. Now go into cameras and actually move those points down just a little bit. We can see kind of a ground plane area, and that should pretty much do. I mean, if it's a faster way you think of adjusting things, I don't know. It works for me, so I recommend it. Okay, the next step. As you can see, if you scrub forward, you can see the camera movements, and those camera movements are also the same number of movements based on the video that you uploaded. Also, you want to make sure that start frame is at 1 and the same number of frames, which is 179. Okay. Also, you want to go into let's see, environment settings, background, bitmap. So desktop, and then the sequence folder, of course. Sure that sequence is selected down here, and that way you have a full. See, it says start frame. Remember that start frame that I was telling you about? Make sure that's at 1. So that way the video is in sync with the camera movements in 3D space. Alright, go ahead and render it out. And you'll see that the clip is now in the background of 3ds Max. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because not too many people know about people that use 3ds Max often don't get into video compositing via After Effects. Okay, and there was one other tutorial, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I was teaching you a little bit about the shadow matte feature, and using the skylight to adjust to the shadows of the shadow matte to add a certain kind of lighting that matches the video, so it kind of looks like, you know, your 3D object is a little bit more into the video. For this first one, I'm going to darken it a little bit. And the second one, I'm going to change it to shadow matte, or matte shadow. Select the plane. Okay, now the plane is nothing but a shadow matte, which means it's a completely transparent floor mat that's only going to render the shadow, and that's it. You can have the background any kind of color you want, or anything like that. Like what I do is I put it in a green background so that I can later put that in Adobe After Effects and key out the green and still have the shadow on the ground and be able to move the object anywhere on the scene that I want to. Just another tip that makes the workflow a lot faster too. So, okay, the sphere is connected to that material, and then we want to add a skylight, of course. Standard skylight. Do about 10. Cast shadows. And there you go. As you can see, there's a ball here that looks like there's a shadow right on the street, you know, and you can use any kind of object you want. Also, you can create, let's imagine this ball or this sphere being your 3D character, and you just go into like perspective and you work on that character's animation. Like say if you want a deer morphing into an elk or something and then throttling off and making sure that all that's good, and then you go back into the camera mode to see how that would look as you pan through the camera movements and stuff. Keeping in mind that you know, your character will be in sync with the video and exactly where you put it. So that's pretty cool. And after you're done, you know, with lighting and illumination and matching the color and getting it to look like it's actually in the video and making it look realistic, you know, go ahead and render out all of the frames and have your animation. And have it completely in sync with the video. So I guess that's it. If you have any questions, give me a holler.